These are important skills in most companies. Stage 3, application. Learning that shows application is seen in the ability to choose, demonstrate, illustrate, interpret, operate, and write. So how well do your training classes help people do this? These skills might be seen in schools by students choosing the right procedure to play a musical instrument. Employees show their application learning when they can do something right. For example, when they use the right tool correctly. Let's look further. Stage 4, analysis. Analysis is important because during this process, one typically represents and weighs the pros and cons of something. This may be seen in the ability to appraise, calculate, categorize, differentiate, question, and test things. Employees need to be able to categorize capabilities and procedures and brief or appraise others of their findings. Stage 5, synthesis. This is a very high level of learning. It is seen as the ability to arrange, collect, create, design, manage, organize, and prepare. Synthesis takes the learning that has gone on in the knowledge, comprehension, application, and analysis stages and processes them in a way where information or resources are created or designed. You should note that synthesis is very interdisciplinary. It may cover all departments in a company and their considerations. A lot of value is put on people that are able to synthesize material quickly and effectively. Now let's look at the final and controlling stage of evaluation. Stage 6, evaluation. The evaluation stage involves having the ability to argue, assess, choose, compare, estimate, predict, select, and evaluate. In the academic world, we might see these skills in the ability to effectively process case studies. In the corporate world, evaluation is valuable because management must identify and weigh alternatives. In addition, management must be able to do this proactively. In summary, it is important to recognize that all levels of learning are important. Those that train and educate and those that are the recipients must start at stage 1 and progress through the stages that are relevant for them in their worlds. Specifically, some jobs don't need much, if any, evaluation or synthesis. Rather, they need heavy knowledge and application learning. Airline pilots, for example, need a wide range of all levels of learning, from textbook to visuals to simulators to actual flying. Now, think of all your students or employees. How well can they do their jobs? How much of these stages of learning are they exposed to? How well have they learned? Those that are exposed to them, or those that have the knowledge, have human competence. People with these skills also can be relied upon to be productive, resourceful, and innovative. In summary, the value of learning is having what was learned and experienced later in order to make effective decisions. These decisions can be anything that may be required at work or in the education field. Let's look at what is going on in training and education. In the year 2000, the United States spent over $700 billion on education for students. Corporate America spent over $74 billion on corporate training. With amounts like these, one can think that every trainee and every student has everything they need or might want. Let's look further. While huge amounts of money and time are spent to educate and train, much of it is lost, wasted, or non-productive. Here's why. First, let me remind you of the 80-20 rule. This rule says that 80% of a company's sales typically comes from 20% of its customers. Therefore, companies focus heavily on getting, serving, and keeping the big spenders. So what, you ask? What's the relevance to education and training? Let me introduce to you the 80-20 catastrophe of learning. The catastrophe is that students and trainees forget 80% of the material they supposedly learned or were exposed to within 30 days. In fact, they forget 65% within 24 hours. These facts are based on Dr. Ebbinghouse's research that identified the curve of forgetting. The alternative to the 80-20 catastrophe of learning can be found in designing and employing learning systems based on artificial intelligence, as we have done at Total Recall Learning. These systems are best suited where the cost of forgetting is high or the value of learning and knowing is high. In other words, if someone forgets a policy or procedure, what's the impact? If a student forgets course material, what is the impact? The foundation of automated learning systems based on artificial intelligence is to reduce forgetting, increase retention, and facilitate the achievement of human competence. A frightening thought about where human competence is deficient is that doctors are typically operating with only 20% of the material they pass tests knowing. Now, on the other side, think of the advantages and the increased levels of human competence that would be achieved if and when people truly retained learned material. An automated training program must combine learning and assessment into one seamless activity. Specifically, increase short-term retention. Provide real-time progress assessments. Offer pre, ongoing real-time, and post-learning input. Detail what needs to be learned in the future. Be developed quickly to present timely information. The most effective automated training programs are engaging and self-paced. Specifically, they deliver information in small, digestible blocks of knowledge presented and rearranged based on the learner's individual performance. Provide interactivity to maintain the interest of the learners. Present facts in connection with audios and visuals, and measures results against objective, consistent, and uniform goals. Dr. Alan Bork, a highly regarded educator and learning expert, said, highly interactive computer material makes individualized attention possible. We need programs that continually probe the student or learner, finding out at each instant what the student can and cannot do. We have found significant improvements in both short and long-term retention performances by artificial intelligent learning systems for students and professionals in a number of industries, universities, and other institutions of higher learning, corporate training courses, military training programs, medical continuous education programs, government training programs, and professional certification exams. As we revisit human competence, it is critical to remember that the 21st century already demands more than in the past. More knowledge is required. We must find ways to learn faster and more effectively. We must share the knowledge with more people today and in the future. When we build on the past and the present, human competence will create and take us to a bright future. Thank you.
We will now continue with the second question and answer session. Our first question is from Mexico. It is from the Universidad Tecnológica de Nezahualcóyotl in the city of Nezahualcóyotl in the state of Mexico, in the country of Mexico.
Okay, muy buenos días.
Good morning. If teamwork is the key for an organization's success, how can we take care of the ethical competitiveness factor at all levels while we also improve the quality of life within the organization?
Tim?
Well, I think to take care of the teamwork knowledge, certainly the team members have to all have a certain framework and understanding of the basic understanding of the topics that they'll be dealing with. And as far as the ethical issues, in a way that's more somewhat of what's accepted in your areas, what's accepted in normal day-to-day operations, and how do the teams actually operate. And I think when you merge the concrete knowledge and, let's say, the soft knowledge of ethics and of the local country, the company itself, you'll have much greater success on that.
Thank you. Next from Mexico is a question from the Colegio de Bachilleres, Estado de Sinaloa, in the city of Culiacán, in the state of Sinaloa, in Mexico.
Good morning. Our question is the following. How do you detect the level of emotional maturity of the different members of an educational institution when the policies of the educational curricula are different from the interests of the authorities or the teachers or students?
So, Tim, you've got competing goals in the institution. How do you measure the level of maturity under those circumstances?
I think much of it comes from somehow establishing a common set of goals and objectives for the two groups. Neither group can exist without each other. And I think when they can come together through collaborative efforts, good communication, they'll be able to knock down the barriers of communication and lack of productivity. It's a matter of getting everybody on board and being focused on the same common goals and objectives.
Eric, any comment on
that? I detected two possible avenues. One was how to measure the maturity, and the other one is how to collaborate between various different interests. I think I go along with what Tim was saying. One is to have a common set of goals, and if everyone is agreeing to move towards a predetermined outcome, then you can set up measurements. In other words, if you have conflicting interests, it's difficult to measure which one is right and which one is appropriate. So having common goals as well as determining what are competencies of maturity, some of what was covered in these modules, and making those the areas of measurement.
Thank you. Our next question is from Mexico. It's also from the state of Sinaloa. It's the Universidad de Occidente in Los Mochis, in the state of Sinaloa in Mexico.
Hello, good morning. What type of organization, what type of structure do we need to achieve the appropriate human and emotional competence for all workers?
Tim, what do you think?
That's a good question. I think more and more companies are rising to the occasion where they are recognizing the importance of human competence. And I think what they're trying to do is get people up to speed, to know the material, to keep the material. One thing you will find that the more knowledgeable the employees and the people within the organization are of as many topics as possible, the more confidence they have, the better they're able to perform their duties and also work together, which is what we're finding if you look at New York right now. A lot of common interests, capabilities, but very diverse groups that are finally working together. And I think the type of organization or structure has to be one with lots of communication up and down the hierarchy, but always keeping in mind what the goals and objectives are.
Eric, something to add?
The point that I think would add to what Tim has said, you would ask about what is the best structure, and the studies and the research is pointing us that it's less about the structure of the organization as much as about the process of how information is shared, how decisions are come by, and how objectives are pursued. So the emotionally mature environment and the human competence of an organization is about the process, the flow of information, the flow of interaction, and the movement towards a goal. So process, perhaps even more important than structure, might be the key here.
Thank you again from Mexico, this time from the Centro Universitario de Tijuana in the city of Tijuana, the state of Baja California in Mexico.
How do we develop the appropriate human competence in a bureaucratic environment where there is business and union pressure and where most workers need to work only because of economic compensation, because we are in a country with a very high level of unemployment?
Tim?
Well, developing the human competence is a critical issue. And I think what you'll find is when you've identified what are you trying to accomplish, and one of the things that we've developed in our learning systems and have found is we've gotten an expert in the field, or either on the academic side or the corporate side, that is very well versed in it and identifies only the information that is critical for people to know. If we look at a lot of training and a lot of education, a lot of what goes on is not really critical to know later on. It's maybe the fun, it's more the material that makes it easier to understand, or even just to get people involved. But what do they need to know later on? When the content expert focuses on that, all of a sudden you will find that, for instance, what might be in a 900-page textbook, what really is the meat or the critical material that they should walk away with is maybe 100 or 200 pages. And when you've narrowed that down and then presented it in a way where there's interaction, there's quizzing, there's assessment, that speeds up the learning process drastically and also enables it to be updated on an as-need basis.
Our next question is from Mexico. It's from Servicios Educativos Integrados al Estado de Mexico. It's from the Departamento Coeva in the city of Toluca in the state of Mexico, in the country of Mexico.
Good morning. If we communicate what we remember, and we only remember 8 minutes within a period of 8 hours, what do you propose to add to the automated learning system so that the real percentage could be over the 20% shown by statistics? Thank you.
Well, thanks for asking that. That's all that information is on the back of my business card. So while I don't have to refer to that, what our message in our system is based around is that we take a set amount of material that we want to get across to people, that we want them to truly know and retain, so they can use it later on. And what we do is we break that into small bits of information, present it to the people, quiz them on it, represent it, until they ultimately have answered the question over a period of 3 or 4 weeks correctly, 5 or 6 times. And this constant, what you could use as a pile driver or as a hammer hammering in the nail, the one hit is just to the short-term memory. Well, we're focusing on the long-term memory. So instead of just exposing it to the people one time, we expose it to them periodically in increasingly longer amount of time. And the studies have shown, and they've been around for many, many years, that this type of learning is the most effective, and it ensures people that they will retain it. So we can indeed take whatever you're trying to learn up to a 90, well, almost 100% recall rate or retention after the 30 days.
Thank you again. From Argentina, we have a question from the Grupo Previsional in the city of Buenos Aires in La Argentina.
Good morning. Through the presentations, we've seen the convenience of some reward for those who are learning. My question is, what type of reward are you referring to? What kinds or types of rewards are advisable, and what are the characteristics that those rewards should have?
Tim, go ahead. Reward structure.
Well, thank you very much. That's nice to think that aside from just making people learn something, they're going to be rewarded for it or get a benefit out of it. And that's really what we focus on, what's important, and that is, what do the people use later on? We would say that the reward in knowing material and actually using it is the critical issue, not just knowing it and storing it like a computer does, but actually the using of it. For instance, in a computer, you only get any use out of it when you get a spreadsheet or a graphic or a document. Same thing, when you know the material, you use it. So we see very easily people get promoted because of the extra knowledge and the use of it. We see people getting jobs. Here in San Diego, there's a company that will not even hire people unless they've gone through a certain amount of this specialized artificial intelligent learning system. Rewards, as far as which type, we always ask, go after the people that you want to reward. Find out what's meaningful and valuable to them. So, for instance, a plaque may be good for some people else. A day off might be more preferred by somebody else. So customize those rewards to the people that you're training.
Thank you. Our next question is from Mexico. It's from the Universidad Tecnológica de Tecamachalco in the city of Tecamachalco in the state of Puebla in Mexico.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Greetings to all. Our question has to do with the previous module. In your opinion, how can an educational institution promote human and emotional attitudes that are appropriate for the future professional development of our graduates?
Eric, that's to you.
Yes, thank you. That's I think, an important question in how to not only practice, if I'm understanding the question, not only for the teachers to practice these components, but how to pass them on to students so that they can take it into their business, into their society. I think I refer back to an answer previously, which is role modeling. The teachers can best teach what they demonstrate. And if they demonstrate openness, if they demonstrate humility, if they demonstrate confidence, if they demonstrate a willingness to say, I don't know, if they demonstrate and live the principles of collaboration and teamwork and empathy, I think that is perhaps the most powerful teaching tool that the teacher has. Who they are, it speaks very powerfully and teaches the children to be like that as well.
Another question from Mexico. This time it's from the Instituto Politécnico Nacional de Educación Continua in Mexico City, Mexico.
Good afternoon. This is my question. Based on the new techniques and learning tools, how can we focus training for those people who have been working for many years and have a different inertia, something that is difficult to change? That's my question.
Tim, what do you say?
In today's world, that's a challenge. Certainly, there are different motivations of a person that's 25 just out of college and a person that's been in the industry for 30 or 40 years, and you're trying to get them up to speed or bring them into today's workforce. What we focus on is recognizing, or what's important to focus on is recognizing that we have different learning styles and different methodologies. Again, the 25-year-old, it's much more interactive, much more high speed, where the older person is going to be a little bit slower and maybe need a different set of information and methods. So, but the key to it is, again, focus on, why is it important for the older person to get up to speed, to be effective and knowledgeable about the particular subject area. We do find that, computers and the interactive learning is also very effective for them because it tends to be self-paced and more that they're in control versus someone else just being in a lecture mode.
Thank you. We have time for one last quick question. It's from the Dominican Republic. It's from the Pontificia Universidad Católica Madre y Maestros in the city of Santo Domingo.
Buenas tardes, soy María
Victorino, what is your approach on the phenomenon which is happening nowadays in selecting personnel where 20 to 22-year-olds are preferred compared to adults who are older, even if they have the same human knowledge, and even though the older person has more emotional knowledge and more experience?
Tim, quickly.
Yeah, I think the key there is to handle it where, yes, indeed, the younger one and the older one may have common, maybe knowledge, but the experience that the older employee brings to the table, they've gone through the process. And I think many people will value that very highly.
Eric, last word to add on that?
A thought is that often the younger person is preferred because they're more malleable, so they still haven't been formed into their opinions. One of the things that an older person applying will keep in mind that will make them more marketable is to stay in a student role, having an open mind, a fresh mind, and a willingness to keep learning, changing, and growing.
Thank you for your excellent questions, but we've run out of time. We hope that you have enjoyed participating once again in this exciting multilingual and multinational program. We invite you to participate in our 9th video conference of this year's series, which will air on October 11th, 2001, entitled The Art and Culture of Risk-Taking, Systems Considerations and Functional Optimization. For additional information on this year's video conference series, please consult your participant's manual, where you will find the dates and specific topics for each program. You may also visit our website at intectra.com. On behalf of all of us at the International Training Center, I thank you for your enthusiastic participation and interest in today's program. Thanks, and see you soon.